Hello, and welcome to Women in Business, where we interview entrepreneurs and senior managers and show you the strengths, successes, obstacles, and roadblocks women experience in business. Since I believe every person in business needs to be visible, I'd like to invite you to watch www.sob6, that's the number 6, tips.com, which will give you some valuable information should you get the call to be on radio or TV, which I think is extremely important. If you'd like to contact me personally, drop me a line at Gayle Carson, that's Gayle, Gayle Carson 13 at gmail.com, or go to my website, www.spunkyoldbroad.com, and sign up for my weekly newsletter.
Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Gayle Carson, SOB, Spunky Old Broad, and I am your guest for today's show. We are starting a new trend. And every month, we're going to have one show of every month where I will be the guest, and I will talk about my career and what I've done to get where I am, et cetera, et cetera. And for this Women in Business show, I thought you'd really like to know how it all got started and when, where, how, and all of that. So I'm kind of going to do this in our first show of Women in Business solo by giving you an idea of where I came from. Now, I have always been an entrepreneur, and my very first job was working as an Avon lady at 13, selling cosmetics from door to door, and I became the top salesperson in our whole area because I was so little, and it was the 50s, and people, when I knocked on their door, there I was, they let you in because mothers were home at that point, and once I got in and I sat down on their couches, that was it. I didn't get up until they bought, so I had a very successful career, and then I created all my own jobs. I worked at a radio station because I wanted to get that experience. I worked as a summer camp counselor teaching drama, dance, music, put on a show at the end of the year, created the music for it because I had a musical background with my piano education, and, of course, I had the dance training, et cetera. So it was by the time I went to college, at 17, I thought I knew everything. And, of course, that only exasperated when I graduated because my college, which was Emerson College in Boston, was such a great learning ground. I had to give 17, can you imagine, 17 public appearances every week. In other words, between my speech classes, my English classes, my drama classes, my broadcasting classes, I did 17 appearances a week. So you either got good or you flunked out. So I started out with D's, not too good. I asked my grandmother if she would buy me a tape recorder, and those are the days of the reel-to-reel, those big things. And I practiced 3 hours a night to be able to speak because I was with the creme de la creme. I mean, people in my classes were fabulous. And, in fact, I still see many of them on TV today where they have gone on to much bigger things. And so I really had to study hard and do a great job in order to be really competitive with them. So by the time I graduated college, not only did I think I was the cat's meow, I thought I knew everything. Well, I wanted to be warm. I went to school at Emerson, which was in Boston. I was raised in Albany, New York, and all I knew was cold weather. And I had a girlfriend who moved to Miami in the 8th grade. And she kept sending me messages of, oh, I went swimming today and the sun's shining and it's so beautiful out. And I thought, I have got to be warm. And so I set my sights on either Miami or LA because those are the only two warm spots I knew back in the 50s. And, of course, this was something that nice girls did not do, but I was determined that I was going to own my own business. I was going to do what I wanted to do. And my parents had always told me that when I graduated college, I needed to be able to have a job. They were done supporting me. So I gave myself 2 weeks to make it. I moved to Miami. On the 14th day, I got the job I wanted. I knew I wanted to work in the modeling business because it was a culmination of everything, of the drama, of the glamour, of the teaching, of the classes, of everything I ever wanted. So I went to all the modeling schools in Miami, and I found one that was willing to hire me at $13 $13 a week. Now, this was on the 14th day, and I thought, well, how am I going to live on $13 a week? Well, she called me back the same day, and she said, I know you're going to make money for somebody. It might as well be me. I'm going to fire my other girl who had been with her for 2.5 years and hired me. So she started me then at $35 a week, and I was still trying to figure out how I was going to live on $35 a week. But what I did do was every single day that I was in that office, and for the first 2 weeks, I actually never saw her. And people would call up and ask me questions, and I did not know the answer. But I wrote everything down on a yellow pad. And when she called in, which was twice a day, I would ask her the answers to the questions, and I never had to ask twice. Within 30 days, I had a year's education because I had learned how to do many things. I had stayed nights to watch her teach. I had learned how to book talent. And it was so funny because back in those days, if you were 35 or 40, you were considered a middle-aged model. It wasn't like today where you could, be 40 and look 20. So it was just an interesting time. Well, what happened was I worked at this for 8 months, and I was doing really well. And within 30 days, I had gone from making $35 a week to making $100 a week because she paid me for classes that I was teaching. She paid me a base salary. I got paid for bookings that I did for modeling. So in other words, if I booked somebody for talent, I got a percentage of that. Even though we worked on percentages, I got a percentage of the percentage. And within 30 days, I was making $100 a week. And back in the 50s and the early 60s, you could live on $100 a week and do well. So that's what happened. And then it was 8 months later, I had gone home to get some dental work done. And while I was gone, she called my house and said, I'm going to sell the business. Are you interested? And I said, no, because I thought, what am I going to do? I have no money. I can't buy this. Well, she really believed in me. And I have to tell you that she allowed me to pay it out over 3 years. So over 3 years, I paid out this amount of money that I bought the business for. And at the end of 3 years, when I had paid it all off, I opened my second place. And in 21 years, which is when I sold the business, I had built 7 offices. We had become a career school, not just modeling, but a whole bunch of different careers. And we had 7 offices. I had 350 people between my models, the talent. I had a convention service business. So we had people that we booked for conventions, for spouse programs, for theme parties, for industrial shows, for all kinds of things. So I had 350 people that I worked with and 7 offices. And that's when I sold the business because I knew I couldn't do any more by myself. But that gives you an idea of how I built a business. I had, and by the way, there were no credit cards back in the 50s, in the 60s. I had to build my credit by going to stores and putting clothing and items on layaway, and by going back every single week and paying money down on them. And that's how I built up my credit. And I can tell you something, even without credit cards, it was easier to build credit then than it is now with all the different rules and regulations that they have in place. So there I was at the end of 21 years, and I had always spoken to build my business because that was the only way I knew that didn't cost money that I could do well because I was a good speaker. And so I did 10,000 free speeches before I ever got paid for speaking. But I did book a lot of speakers. And one of the speakers that I booked was Bill Gove, who was the first president of the National Speakers Association. And he and Sam Edwards, who was also on my roster, said, you know, Gayle, you're a better speaker than we are. You should join NSA, National Speakers Association, and go to our convention and become a paid professional speaker. Well, I said pooh for 3 years because I was so busy running the business that I didn't have time to go, do any of these other things. In the meantime, I also became a television spokesperson for Clairol because I was on a panel with then Attorney General Janet Reno. Clairol was sponsoring it. And honest to goodness, I have no idea what I said. But at the end of my big 5 minutes, the Clairol representative came up to me and said, you would do very well as a TV spokesperson for us. Would you be interested in going around the country, redoing women, and being a spokesperson for us? Well, I thought this was the cat's meow. I thought this was absolutely fantastic. I couldn't think of anything better to do. So I said, absolutely. I thought that would be fabulous. So I became a spokesperson for Clairol, went all over the country. We took a woman, one in her 20s, one in her 40s, one in her 60s, and on a Tuesday, we would bring them in and do a before on camera on TV. And then Wednesday, we would redo her totally. New clothes, new makeup, new hair, new everything. And then Thursday, we would bring them back, put them back on TV, and show the before and after. And it was so successful and so well received that we did it over and over and over. Then at the end of the 8 months, I came back to Miami and I thought to myself, why don't I want to buy this business? This is what I've always wanted to do, but I had no money. So I talked to her, my boss, and I said, look, I really want to do this, but I have no money. How can we work it out? Well, she was so anxious for me to do this because she really believed in me that we worked out a payment plan that was good for her because it gave her teaching money. She still taught classes. It was good for me because I could continue to mentor under her, and it gave me a chance to get my act together. And that is what built my business for the school business, the agency business, which was both SAG and AFTRA. And as part of SAG and AFTRA, we always got top fees for our people who did TV commercials and movies. And I also became president of the Modeling Association of America during this time, and so was not in charge of, but was the conduit for putting on conferences, modeling conferences, all over the U.S. and Canada. We put on conferences at the Waldorf in New York, at the Dallas Fashion Mart, on the Queen Mary in Long Beach, at the Fairmont in San Francisco, at the Merchandise Mart in Toronto, and also the Merchandise Mart in also the French-speaking part of Canada, which I can't think of right now off the top of my head. But we put on these conferences all over the place. So I worked with people like Eileen Ford, with people like the top models from all over, and it was really fascinating. On top of that, because I was not scared of anything, I walked into a Madison Avenue ad agency, which was the sponsor of the Wide World of Entertainment, which was really big in the late 60s and early 70s. And we made a contract with them, and I went back to my board at the Modeling Association. I said, okay, I've got this contract for us to be the sponsors of this modeling contest, a Model of the Year contest. And so we need to sign this contract. Well, they didn't want to because they thought that was going to be my own personal glory trip to fame. Well, of course, I was going to be on TV for all of maybe 10 seconds, and the real star would be the person who won the contest. So I said to them, well, that's okay. If you don't want to do it, I have the contract. I will put all of my own girls in it, and then I really will get to be world famous. Well, that was all they needed to hear, and they signed the contract. And no, my girl did not win, and I was on TV for all of 10 seconds, and our host and hostess was Barbara McNair and George, I can't think of his name either right now. But anyway, George, who was the big tanning guy, the big tanning guy of the late 50s and early 60s, and they were my host and hostess. From there, I went on to a very successful speaking career because I spoke all the time. So for me to make the transition to paid speaking was not a big deal But it was a big deal in terms of the money that I made. It was definitely very rewarding. I was very lucky that I got some wonderful contracts. And I spoke on things like leadership, team building, negotiation, customer service. And as a matter of fact, I was the keynote speaker at the Australian Customer Service Summit in Melbourne, and they licensed my name, which was Customer Service as an Ongoing Profit Center. And that was the theme of their entire conference. So I've been very fortunate. I've worked in 50 countries. I've worked in 49 states. And that's what I did for another 21 years until I started the SOB, the Spunky Old Broad, and working with mentoring and coaching women. And now I specialize in coaching and mentoring women 50 plus. I also specialize in coaching people on the media, both for how to get on TV, because I do a lot of television, and of course, radio and podcasts as well. But I just thought you'd find it interesting how I got to where I am today. And the interesting thing is that just about everybody that I dealt with, even way back then, 60 years ago, they were all men. I mean, there were not a lot of women in business. And so all the complaints that you hear now from women about all the things they go through, I went through all of those, but I just didn't know I was going through them. I was so naive and so young that it just never occurred to me that I was being hit on or that I was being compromised or that any of these things were going on. I'm sure that I was flirted with, but I was also a big flirt. So I heard a lot of the comments, and I just laughed them off because I was not working for somebody. I owned my own business. So it was a little bit different. Now, did it mean not getting some contracts? Maybe. But if it was, I certainly was not aware of it. But I think it's important for you all to understand that back then, 60 years ago, and this is my 61st year of business, that there just were not very many women in business. And the interesting thing was that when I was teaching leadership skills for women, which I did a lot of, women did not want to have a woman boss. They preferred to work for a man. They felt they were treated more fairly by a male boss than a female boss, which I found tremendously interesting. Now, today, you will find more women supporting women. They are coming to the forefront and saying, look, we deserve our turn. We deserve our say. We deserve to be taken seriously. But back then, women did not want to work for other women. So it was kind of a perpetuating kind of thing that men had the upper hand because, frankly, that's who women preferred working for. So when we look at where we are today, again, I say it's really the same comments, the same situations. I think with the Me Too movement, men are certainly more aware. They are certainly more scared of being held accountable. But we hear all the time of those that just don't get it and still sexually harass women, still use off-color humor, still whistle at women when they go by, say things that aren't nice to say. But those people will always be out there because that's who they are. So when we talk about these things, I don't want you to think that they're all brand new situations because they are not. Most of the partnerships that I did during my 40 years, really, before I got into what I'm doing now, were all with men. And I can't tell you that they were not good partnerships. They were. Were there people who tried to take advantage? Of course. But that's in any situation under any circumstance. It could be any time. And so that's why I think it's important for all of you to realize you individually make your own future. Don't use excuses. Don't use, oh, poor little me. Don't say, oh, this person took advantage of me. Don't do any of those things. You create your own future. And so take advantage of the opportunities that are in front of you and understand that it takes a lot of no's before you get to a yes. How did I get started in the speaking business? Do you want to know? I don't think you could do it today because people don't answer their phone. But I called 100 meeting planners a day. I called 500 a week. I didn't care who said no. I only cared who said yes. And within 9 months of deciding that I was going to be a paid professional speaker, I was doing 135 programs a year, which is pretty good. And that's what I did for 20 years. And that's how I spoke in Asia 5 times, Australia 5 times. I mean, I spoke all over Australia, Melbourne, Adelaide, Sydney, Cairns, Brisbane, Perth. I mean, I was all over. You just can't imagine. And also in speaking in England. I think I've been in more English towns and cities than most Brits have been, because I was all over England and all over Asia. And I was in Malaysia, and I was in Singapore, and I was in, I mean, there just wasn't a place that I didn't go to. And I've been in Germany, and I've been in Finland and Sweden and Scotland and Ireland and just everywhere. And it was because I kept making those contacts. And it was mostly men that I made the contacts with who booked me to speak. So when we talk about these kinds of things, I want you to know none of this is brand new. It's like history repeating itself. We may have it better now. Same time that we just called something. I will say I am really happy to say that women are promoting women, and that we are including all kinds of women, that we have, that we are not anywhere looking towards color or nationality or LBGQ or any of the rest of it. Everybody today is considered an equal, and that's what it's all about. So that's my journey. That's how I got to where I am. I started broadcasting and radio back in college 60-some years ago. I had 3 radio shows when I was in college. I have 3 radio shows today. So we have not grown so far as we might have, but 3 60 years ago, 3 today, and it's all because of how things are happening. And there are so many more opportunities today with all the different social audio platforms that are out there and all the new streaming platforms for TV, et cetera. There's just no reason why you cannot have a show of your own. But you have to have something to say, and that's all a part of it. So hopefully, you know, this is a part of where you want to be and how you want to do things. And I can't tell you how important it is for me, for all of you to be able to get an idea of where I came from and the hard work that it takes to continue to be successful and to continue to learn all the new strategies that are out there. It's just key and very important as part of this, because, you know, it's all something that I think we need to be aware of. So that's it, folks. You know, hopefully this was, all I can say is I hope it was interesting to you to find out where Gayle Carson came from, the spunky old broad, how it all evolved, how 60 years went by in a flash. And, you know, it's so heartening to me that there is no age limit anymore. Sure, nobody's going to hire me at 83 to go to work in corporate America, but guess what? They probably wouldn't have hired me when I was 21 or when I was 31 or 41, because I was not corporate material. I could not do what I thought something that shouldn't be done was to be done. I couldn't do something that I thought was stupid. I couldn't do something that I thought was not authentic. I couldn't do something that I felt did not go with my code of ethics. So same thing 60 years later, folks. Hope you enjoyed today. Next month, we'll do a totally different broadcast on women in business, and we'll go into some of the other business skills and business techniques that are part of what I've developed and how I run my businesses, et cetera. And in the meantime, I want to thank all of you for listening, and hopefully you've learned a little bit about me. I want you to go to my website, Spunky Old Broad. You'll find my programs there, my online courses at SOB University. You'll find my store there. I have clothing, I have coffee mugs, I have all kinds of things for you that you can do as well. And if you're over 50 and you'd like to be part of my virtual SOB club, it's right under groups under Virtual SOB Club. Thanks so much for listening, and I will see you personally next month.
Thanks for listening to Women in Business. I hope you enjoyed today's show, and if you have any suggestions as to who you'd like me to have as a guest, just email me at gaylecarson13@gmail.com. Be sure to check out www.sob6tips.com. And in the meantime, go to www.spunkyoldbroad.com to see the resources I have for you.